make that commitment and then take action in the moment. Action every day. Like, what are you doing to reach your goals? If your goal is to feel better about an incident, if your goal is to make $1 million, if your goal is to, achieve something at work or with your family or whatever, like make that commitment and never look back. Make that commitment and take action daily.
You're listening to Guards Down. This is Greg Washington.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the next episode of Guards Down. I have with me today, I'm gonna call him a young man. His name is Ashton, and he is coming to us from the military community, dealing with, he first started out Coast Guard, right? And then Air Force?
Air Force, yep. Air Force Pararescue, yeah.
So Air Force Pararescue. So, I mean, he's part of the elite of the elite. So Ashton, look, please tell us about yourself, man. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Greg. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. And, I hope we can talk about some good stuff that adds value to your listeners. I'm excited to be here. So, so I don't know. I joined the military at 18, which, a lot of people do. Did the whole route of like, I want to go to college, but I didn't think I would actually complete college because I had no focus at that point. But the military, provided that challenge that allowed me to refocus. So initially my parents were really against the military. So I ended up going into the Coast Guard and I did the rescue swimmer route. So I did that for about 6 years, loved it. But then the war started in, 2001 and I saw everybody deploying and I'm kind of one of those guys that is constantly seeking a challenge and seeking to grow and get better and do something bigger and faster than the day before. So I looked at a lot of the special operations communities, the jobs that they offered, and I ended up going into pararescue. And so I joined the Air Force and went into the pipeline at, I guess I was 24 at that point. So it was 2004, summer of 2004. It was a 2-year pipeline and came out the other end. 2006. It was 2006 when I joined, yeah. And then came out at 2008, where I got stationed out in Okinawa. I was there for 3 years. Then I came to Fort Bragg, and I've been at Fort Bragg since, 2011 till now. And I just recently separated the Air Force and went into Air National Guard. So that's 20 years total for me at this point. But I've had a great career. I enjoyed every part of it, and I met some amazing people. I had some even more amazing experiences, and loved it.
Man, look, so 20 years in the military, and how old are you now?
I'm 40 years old.
And so like I was talking earlier, you came on and I was like, in my mind, I was like, man, he can't be no older than like 26, 28. And so
I drink a lot of water.
There we go. And so I want to bring that up because there are people out there that go through things and on the outside looking in, they look perfectly fine, perfectly normal. You look like a young, healthy, college student that's having a good time. And here you are, 20 years in the military, went some of the hardest routes that a person could possibly go, for their military career, being special operations and being a paramedic, a pararescue medic. Like, who does that? You would think about this age, you would have pain and, be walking with a limp and the whole nine. And
and a lot of guys do that get out of, I have a lot of friends that have ended up with those kind of injuries. I've been very lucky. I mean, I use the word luck loosely because I'm a strong believer that, luck is, what is that saying? Luck is when preparation and opportunity meet. And so, I've always been very focused on my health, very focused on taking care of myself. because I'm very competitive. I don't know. I am very competitive. So like, if I find a way to be better than the next guy, then that's usually what I worked at. And, being physical and taking care of my body was usually the way to do it. So, and in doing so, you kind of learn a lot of hacks along the way. I focused heavily on my mobility, which a lot of guys don't, and they end up having knee and back problems and neck fusions. I mean, I don't know. I can't tell you how many guys I know that have back and neck problems just from walking around in kit and the helmet with MVGs on all the time. Cause that's your whole career. Right. Mm-hmm. So really learning how to take care of your body was a huge part. And that probably started with a young age. My mom, she's always been into holistic healing and stuff, and meditation and yoga, and that carried over to my adult life. So I'm lucky in that sense, I guess. But yeah.
When we sit here and you bring up a great point, with your mom teaching you about like holistic healing and medicine. Of course, the show is about how different cultures deal with PTSD, and some like to call it PTS, and grief and complicated grief. So, I first like to talk about your childhood experience. Did your parents teach you, or your family around you, teach you how to deal with trauma and grief growing up?
Yeah, I mean, not directly, probably indirectly, just like anybody's parents, unless those parents are really conscious and focused on raising their child in that manner, then you may see that. But in my experience, like, my parents were busy working, they're busy, trying to keep food on the table and keep us happy and outside of the house. Cause I grew up with 2 other boys, so 3 brothers in the house, and my stepfather, who was also very strict. So a lot of that, you just learn from example, and you learn what works. It's that conditioning that's what I learned from. I mean, my dad was heavy into, being a man is learning to swallow the pain and work through it. Right. But on the flip side of that, my mother was heavy into meditation and yoga. And I think that probably played a huge part. I mean, I picked up yoga and meditation when I was in high school. That's that time in your life when you're really butting heads with your father, or I was anyway. And, he's an awesome guy, but he was my stepdad, and we butted heads a lot. I mean, so learning to deal with that stress was probably, and funneling that through, meditation and self introspection. I still have, it may sound corny, but I still have journals from my high school days. I used to write down a lot of stuff, which probably helped in some manner. And that, helped me channel and understand my feelings and how everything was going. So you learn by trial and error, obviously, and then by what you see through your parents. So I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
That does. Indirect conditioning, understanding how your family dynamic works, and they're handling it, and as you see them going through, you're picking up on what to do yourself. And then for you to pick up and learn yoga and meditation and journaling, even at that young age, there's something guys don't do. Right. So it's like, it makes me wonder, like, oh, well, maybe had I done, journaling, I would have been a step quicker, right? Or, on the edge of getting a handle on this thing.
It's tough to do when you first get into it. And sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but it is tough to do because I've stopped it and started it over and over and throughout my life. And it definitely helps you, open a window into what you truly feel, and understanding what's going on behind it. Because otherwise, you do end up bottling up a lot. But I think journaling is a very powerful tool, and we can get into more of that later. I follow that. I don't know if you heard of it, the Miracle Morning method. Yeah, it's actually really cool. I didn't really get into it until I did a lot of the things, the methods, but I didn't get into it until I started my own business, because at that point I was, I've been a team leader. I've led guys in into, battle overseas and stuff like that. But it's totally different when you're doing your own business. It was a whole different dynamic for me. And so I was looking for any type of advice on how to do that. And one of the things I found was this guy, I can't think of his name right now, but he wrote the book, The Miracle Morning. And it was just a study on what people with the most effective or most successful people out there, 7 of their common traits that they do. Like, so journaling was one of them. Meditation or silence or prayer was another one. Affirmations and reading and typically they all do that before breakfast and to get their day started. And I thought that was really awesome. And I never did all 7 until now, but some of those methods, some of those practices I did pick up, throughout life, and they definitely help you focus your day and understand where you're going and what you need to do. So if you're looking for a good book on that, I mean, that one's a really good one. Miracle Morning.
Yeah. No, I'm definitely going to have to do my homework on this one, just because, I mean, even for me now, it's tough for me, to get all of those thoughts on the paper. So I'll definitely. Okay. So when we talk about, learning indirectly how your family copes and you were learning, your coping skills, do you feel like there's a cultural difference in how people cope?
Yeah, I mean, certainly I don't know if it's cultural. I don't know. Yeah, I guess it is. I mean, if we're talking like culture as in like American culture versus like Eastern, like Middle Eastern or Eastern or I guess can you say Asian? I don't know. Asian. Yes, I bet there is differences. Obviously I can only talk about what I, learned in America, but a lot of what I learned was from, I guess in, India, they focus on meditation and yoga. So yeah, it's very different, but at the end of the day, I think a lot of it's very similar. Like we look at the surface and you're like, oh, yoga and meditation are Eastern philosophies where they believe in 100 different gods and yada, yada. But in reality, when you look at the practices they're doing, they're going within, much like you would in a church, much like you would in a mosque or whatever. Like you're observing that silence and reflection, and you're praying to a higher power. Or, there probably are, differences on the surface, but I think beneath the surface, they're very similar. I mean, you look at the most effective. I read a lot of philosophy when I was younger, and I really love that stuff. And I think when you get past the names, it's very much the same. I mean, the American Indian to the to like the African tribesmen to the Indian, whatever, India, from India, Chinese, Japanese, European. I mean, all those teachers have at some point said, sit down in silence and reflect and give up to a higher power. So I think, yes, there's differences, but beneath the surface, it's all the same. Yeah. No, people are people.
I like how you said that, go within, like the surface level, yes, there are differences. Everybody has, they call their God, whatever you call them. But like you said, when you sit down and you recognize just on a basic level, on a common ground, that you acknowledge that there's a higher being than you, then you go within to find, inner peace. But yeah, I would definitely do that.
Have you ever heard of Joe Dispenza? He talks a lot about some really cool stuff related to that.
No,
man, he's great. He talks a lot about how your mind is in control, and the effect of your mind is in control of your reality as well as like your body. And I think that's a huge thing. I mean, a lot of people fail to recognize the power that they have inherent within themselves. I mean, your heart is beating on its own. It's transporting blood. And I should know all this stuff because I'm a paramedic, but I can't tell you the exact, but it's transporting blood or oxygen and nutrients to your body. And you don't have to do anything. You just trust in it. You don't even think about it. It just happens. When you go to sleep, you're going to sleep, you're going to breathe all night. Like that's something that happens. That is a power within you that is going on. And maybe it's getting a little hokey, but I mean, people are like, people take it for granted, trusting in their body and trusting in their mind. And I mean, he goes so far as to show the proof of how powerful the mind is in healing. He's big on the healing side of it. So using the mind to heal the body, because every cell responds to thoughts, which are electronic vibrations throughout the body. So if you continuously tell yourself, I'm sick and I feel bad, you're going to be sick and you're going to feel bad, and so on and so forth. I'm fat, I'm thin, I'm whatever. I'm not, like those things, play a huge role. And I'm no expert on it, but there's some amazing science behind it. I mean, you look at I got into quantum physics for a while, and quantum physics has been proving this lately as well. Just the power of thinking and how it affects molecules on a molecular level. And when you put, at a base level, that's what we're made of, right? Atoms and molecules. So, I mean, I don't know. Do your own research, come to your own conclusions, but there's some really cool information out on that stuff.
Yeah. No, I mean, I like how you went into that, and it's not necessarily being quirky or anything like that. It's more so learning what your body's going through. So if you're feeling some kind of way, if something is going on and you don't understand what it is, if you take the time to do your research, you can then put a definition to what it is you're feeling or what you're going through. And once you have that definition, you can come up with a game plan to overcome it. So
yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about coping skills. What are some tools and techniques that you use to cope with things you dealt with on your own, both healthy and unhealthy?
Well, I'll tell you, we'll start with the unhealthy, which probably is borderline healthy. But so from a young age, I've kind of addressed everything with humor. And that's when it gets hard. If I can make a joke out of it, it makes it easier. And that may sound, in some situations, people may find that disturbing. But at some level, it's a coping mechanism, right? I think Dave Chappelle does an awesome bit on it in his, comedy, talking about how he cracks a joke in the middle of a terrible horror movie or whatever, and people are just staring at him, but it's how he copes with it. And I think there's a lot of guys that deal with trauma and hard times with humor. And I think that is one of the ways that I have gotten through a lot of stuff, from, being mortared in the middle of my sleep to, finding out friends have, died in crashes and getting shot and whatever else. I often think humor is one of the best ways to move through that. The other thing, when you're on a team like I was, the teams are usually very supportive of each other. Hopefully, the team I was on, it was awesome. I mean, we would come together every time on the date of one of our friends' passings, and we would all toast him and talk stories about him. And then that brings, it brings closure, but it brings comedy, and it brings, it helps you keep that memory alive, but at the same time, feel good about it, not feel good about them passing, but certainly feeling good about accepting it. Right. And that is one of the big things. If you can't accept it, you'll never move past it. And I'm no expert. This is just what I've, seen in my life. So I think, having that support network around you is very important, but also being able to accept the situation and respond to it in a healthy manner. I'm not sure if I'm answering your question exactly, but yeah. I think first and foremost, it did start with humor. In the military, I'm sure you've heard it. Everybody's always embrace the suck, and it's such an easy way to say it. Because when it really sucks, like people, that's tough. How do you tell a mother? I did CPR on a 2-year-old girl for 2 hours, and I had to hand that baby back to the mother. And, how do you tell the mother to embrace that suck? I mean, that's tough, so understand, acceptance is probably the first point, right? So I think in humor, I was able to accept a lot of the situations I was in. I was able to make light of it, accept it, and move past it. Yeah.
So you brought out 3 great points. One was to, I'll say, seek humor, right? Find a silver lining in, things to make yourself happy, or, to seek out, happiness. The other thing that you touched on is about your team and being supportive and having this ritual of what you guys do to honor the passing of, of another teammate. And then accepting the reality of what things are. I think those are 3 really good, healthy points.
I would say my team had a healthy or unhealthy, like I think you called it a ritual. You're right. Ritual of drinking and telling stories. That probably is a cultural thing right there, like you were talking about earlier. And we've seen it other places too. I mean, the American Indians used to call it counting coup, where they'd count all the cuts on their staff, which kept track of their feats, their acts of heroism or whatever during war. And it was one way of helping them work through it. That's a cultural thing. I'm sure there's other cultures that do it, but that's the one that stands out to me.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So tell us, what's been your experience dealing with trauma and grief?
Are you looking for specific instances, or are you looking for, you mean how I did it, or how?
Just whatever comes to mind, because I want to understand, for anyone out there, it's your everyday life and experiences. I believe that trauma shapes your life. It shapes who you become, it shapes what you endure, and it also shapes how you transition. And so for me, growing up, I saw my mother abused, so I wanted to be a protector and provider for my family. And so that was my route. That was one of the big reasons why, I joined the military and was an officer and a leader and played football. And then when I went through the military, losing my 2 best friends were some of the hardest things I had to deal with, more than my own personal injuries being in the military. And then the transition out was, I had spent, since I was 17, my whole mindset was, I'm going to be a career officer. This is what I want. And now the reality of it is, I have to figure life out all over again.
Yeah. So I think you're absolutely right. I do believe that your surroundings shape a lot of your beliefs. But I once heard a quote, and I really love this quote: "A belief is just a series of thoughts that we keep thinking." And so it's so obvious that people, oh yeah, of course, yeah, that makes sense. But they just kind of gloss over that. I think but when you really take a look at that, that means you can change beliefs, right? And that's huge. That's huge, because if somebody is saying that I am this way because of this trauma or because of whatever in my life, because when I tell you, like, my dad and I bumped heads, we bumped heads, like, it is what it is. Everybody comes from some type of struggle when they're younger, and what we choose to focus on. What is it that Tony Robbins said? I love he has some great quotes about this, but he says, what you focus on grows, or something that I think I'm paraphrasing, but really where your focus is what will grow in your life. And I think that's very powerful, because like you said before, you look for that silver lining. If you're always looking for or looking to the past, you can never see a better future. You can never see a way out if we're always looking backwards. I mean, we have to be anchored in the present moment, grateful for the past because it gave us insight into what we truly want out of life, right? I mean, I saw my parents struggling for money their whole life, and thank God for that, because it lit in under my butt, like, I want to be financially free. I want to do this, and this, and I want to be set up for success, and not have to worry about that stuff. I mean, that's just one example. But I mean, and for you, like, you saw something when you were a child, I think that's huge, because then you turn around and you want to become a protector. That we have to make peace with the past and be in the present. But if we're always looking at the past, like, if I would have done something different, if I could have been there for so-and-so or whatever, I mean, then there's no moving on. And I think that's one of the most powerful things is the acceptance portion. I mentioned it before, but being able to accept the present moment. I mean, that's why this is going to sound crazy, but I've always been very enamored with war. I thought it would, of course, they make it look like something else in the movies and everything. But for me, when I got there, I loved it. I loved every minute of it. It's just like, I don't know how to equate it. Like you played football. I played rugby. I played lacrosse. I played hockey. It made you very focused on the moment. You get hit. You can't just sit there and think about what I do wrong and how can I be better. You get up and start going again. You get less than a couple seconds to get up and get going again. And I think I saw that in going overseas, is like people become who they truly are. Fear comes out, but then also some of the greatest aspects of humanity come out. You don't see that so much in regular life because there's so much time between bang to boom, like when something happens to when you see the results of it. Whereas like in war, you see it very fast. In sports, you see it very fast. How fast is that guy going to recover from that loss? So-and-so just dunked on him. Like, is he going to be able to turn around and play defense, or is he going to be able to, or is he going to lose it because all of this is the third time he's been dunked on in 5 minutes, whatever. Like, those are big things. Learning how to accept and move on is huge. And I don't know. I love the concept of being present, because there's so much power in it. If we're always wishing for the future or mourning over the past, we can never do anything great in the present, right? So, yeah.
Man,
I hope I didn't just ramble there, man. I'm sorry.
That's good. You hit so many good points. When you talk about when you focus, what you focus on grows. It reminded me of why I say what I say at the end of my shows. There's two things I tell people, three now just because of COVID. I tell everybody what they say. Two things I tell people is to stay focused and stay engaged. And
I love that. Yeah.
I feel like if you focus on, like you said, whatever your focus is on, that's what grows. That's what manifests.
Yeah.
A business, if it's you personally getting better or going after, a personal goal, whatever that is, like whatever you focus on, it grows. And to stay engaged is about living in the moment, living in now, being present. And so, man, you hit those.
I've never listened to your podcast. That was an accident. But no, I totally agree. That's really cool. One of the things we always tell people, because with our business, a lot of veterans reach out to us, veteran entrepreneurs and stuff. And we really like the commit. So anything's possible, right? You get up in the morning and a lot of times you don't even realize it, but you're committing to do something and you just go do it. You accept that it's going to be done no matter what, like your wife gives you I don't know how, if you're married or how your wife is or whatever, but my wife gives me a grocery list. Like, there's not an option. I'm getting these groceries. And if I don't come back with them, I'm going to face the consequences. But we take that so lightly. But when it comes to like big goals, people always give them a way out. They give themselves a way out. Well, if this doesn't work, I'll go somewhere else. I can't tell you how many times I saw that in the, going through selections. I went through multiple selections to get, to the teams that I was at. And people always, like, the people that weren't going to make it, they're the ones that always had a way out. They, if this doesn't work, or they had some reason or some excuse. And like Jocko Willink says, excuses are just lies. You're just lying to yourself, either to make it easier or whatever. And, but I think what you're saying is huge, like it's the same thing. It's like, make that commitment and then take action in the moment. Action every day. Like, what are you doing to reach your goals? If your goal is to feel better about an incident, if your goal is to make $1 million, if your goal is to, achieve something at work or with your family or whatever, like make that commitment and never look back. Make that commitment and take action daily. But I mean, I think we're saying the same thing, honestly.
No, just spot on. Okay. So when someone is dealing with grief and PTSD, what are some of the signs, feelings, thoughts, actions?
Friends that I've seen, and I didn't go through PTSD per se. I mean, I don't know, some people might call it that, but I had a bunch of TBIs, but I don't know. I got diagnosed with it later, but I didn't feel like I was having PTSD, excuse me. I'm getting dyslexic. Yeah, a lot of couldn't sleep, nightmares, anxiety, didn't feel like doing anything, didn't feel like going to the gym, trouble talking about it, issues at work with friends. There was a lot of removal from a lot of that stuff. So that's what I've seen with not just myself, but with other guys that I've worked with.
Yeah.
Drinking was another one, unfortunately.
Removal, excessive drinking. I've heard people talk about the difference in how a person talks.
I can't say I've noticed that. I don't know. It didn't come up. It probably was there, but it may not have been what I focused on.
Got you.
Yeah.
Well, let's flip it. Right. What are some things a person can do to help a person dealing with grief and PTSD? One, how can you help yourself? And then two, how can others help you?
I think, that's a tough one, because if somebody doesn't want to be helped, they can't. They're never going to find help. They have to want to feel better at some point. And being open to get help is the first step for either yourself or for a friend. And probably just listening to a podcast like this means you're on the right road. Like, you've accepted that you either need it or somebody that needs it. And so, that's probably the first step, is the acceptance that you do need it and you can get it. Because I think a lot of times people don't think there's a way out, right? There's no other option, or and how do you help those people? That's a tough one. I think the best way is to be there, to be receptive, to be open for them, because I can tell you that guys that come from that kind of military background that have seen that stuff, it's tough to open up to. It's tough to open up about. And I've seen some big guys open up just, because we stood around and toasted certain individuals, after they passed. And that really helped. I think that really helped with people going to the funeral. But then again, like I said, I was on a team. I was always on a team. So coming back to that team mentality, we would come back and we'd have a toast to so-and-so, and we'd tell great stories about them. And the people that were really struggling, I think that really opened up those doors and helped them deal with it. That's a really tough question. I think every person is different, but that's what I saw. being around other people for me. I know I'm a people person anyway, so that it meant a lot to me to be around other people and see what they were going through, and also share my stories about everything that happened.
Indeed. I mean, it's a brotherhood, and it is something that you deal with grief as a family, as a unit. You don't walk it alone. I mean, for you to, mention your team, your brothers that would go through hell and back for you. I mean, to be able to have the moments with them, and not just the glory moments of being at war, like that means something. And so I appreciate you. I appreciate you.
Yeah, I think one of the hardest things, honestly, was meeting with the family. That made it a lot harder. But we always used to invite the family members back around to the unit on their Memorial Day, because we wanted them to feel like, they still had a part at the unit. They still had, brothers and sisters that are still working. We didn't just drop them just because their spouse died or their father died or whatever. I think that's pretty powerful too. Involving the family, like you said. I mean, I know you're talking about the team as your family, but certainly working with their family, that was probably the hardest part, is working with other family members.
Yeah. Tell us about your TBI. You said that you kind of led to your diagnosis of PTSD.
So, like I said, I've got 21 years right now. I was a halo jumper. I was a static line jumper. I was a free fall jumper and a jump master for both of those. So I have something over like 750 jumps. I was also a breacher, which means we, using explosive breaches to blow doors to get into buildings, as well as a sniper, which nothing major there, but I had a bunch of hard landings. I mean, if you've ever been a static, what?
Wait a minute, look. You just mentioned being a static line jumper, a halo jumper, a breacher, and a sniper.
Yeah.
Ain't nothing easy about none of that. like kids on video games dream about being halo jumpers. Like, that's only the elite of the elite type of thing. So, like, explain. Don't skip over that. Tell us about being a halo jumper and about the training you went through with all of this, because it's not easy.
It's not easy. You're right. It's not easy, but I've always been that guy that's like, if other people can do it, I think I can do it. And if I think I can do it, I go for it. And, I'm actually working on a book right now talking about this, but when you take that, I mentioned it earlier, when you commit to a goal, whether it's easy or hard, it doesn't matter. You're committed. That's it. I mean, are you married, Greg?
I am divorced, but we're best friends though.
Okay. Yeah. So, commit, and that's a great point. Commitment changes day to day, right? So like, what are you committed to today? And that's my whole point and part of what I'm working on. But, so getting up, in the military, you don't go tandem jumping for your first halo jump. They take you from the wind tunnel, which is just a tunnel where fast air blows up from through a net. So you can't fall on the blades below that are blowing the air up, but there's a net and you're over the net and you just learn how to fly, right? So learn how to fall more or less. And then you go from that and they take you up to 10,000 feet and then you have an instructor and he's going to jump with you, but he gives you the green light and you go, and that's it. And you're on your own. He's with you. But I committed. Like, I remember being up there, I was 25 years old at that point, or I was 27 at Halo school. And there's guys, special forces guys, that they get their Halo school later in their career. So these guys all had plenty of combat experience and so you're kind of looking at them and you look up to them at some point, but in my mind, I was always just like, no matter what, I'm not going to hesitate. When he points, I'm going, whether I die or not, I'm doing this. And making that commitment, I bet it makes me laugh to talk about, because all the guys I worked with for the past 10 years, they're all those kind of guys. So you kind of gloss it over a lot. But that's just it. You make that commitment to go, and you go. And there's no turning back. Like, I'm going to jump out of this plane, and I'm going to figure it out. All the procedures. Is it hard? Once you make that commitment, like you're going to do it. It doesn't matter if it's hard. I don't know. Yeah. So yeah, like a lot of guys that get into that line of work, they love those kind of overcoming those kind of obstacles. And so that's probably what makes them good at that job anyway, is because you get a bunch of those guys together and they're always challenging each other to go faster, farther, and, whatever else. But
had some really good high speed training, and some of that resulted in TBIs.
Yes. Yeah. There's some cool studies that are coming out from the Navy right now. Just when you go from terminal velocity to 25 feet per second. So, falling at terminal velocity to your parachute opening, and now you're falling at 25 feet a second, what that does to the brain. And over time, it causes these micro, and again, I'm not an expert on it. So if somebody has better information, I'm going to say what I know. But what I understand is like micro tears in the brain tissue, and they continuously healing and tearing and healing and tearing. The same thing happens with, what is it called? With explosions. So say you're shooting mortars. The same thing happens with mortars. You're getting they're explosions that are going off near your head, or when you're breaching a door. When you put a block of C4 on a door, you step around the corner and blow that door up. That pressure wave goes right through the body, and that's causing small TBIs. And over time, the effects of that can be really detrimental to your hormone production, to your mental clarity, to all that stuff, and it adds up. And I think we mentioned it before the podcast, but I really got into following a guy named Dr. Gordon, I think his name is. He started. I'm sorry.
Mark Gordon?
Yeah, him and another special forces guy, they started the Angel Warrior Foundation, and that's what they focus on. And initially, Dr. Gordon was really big into working with boxers who, naturally they're getting hit in the head all the time, and they end up with all these TBI and PTSD like symptoms. And he saw that, and the military has been terrible because. Not terrible. They're just, 10 years behind, I think. When they look at TBIs and PTSD, a lot of times they're saying, oh, there's no problem unless you've been knocked unconscious. And that was kind of that was the history of my unit anyway, like, oh, were you knocked unconscious? Okay, well then don't worry about it. Instead you got guys that they go through, when we go do a CQB train up, you're blowing up probably like, I don't know, 25 to 50 doors a day. And that's explosions shockwaves are going through your body over and over and over as you're doing that. And then you're going in and shooting and throwing bangers. And it's a lot of stuff going on. And then you wonder why you're so exhausted at the end of the day, and that's a huge part of it. Well, anyway, Dr. Gordon started to find that he could fix a lot of those problems with hormone replacement therapy. And I realized, when I looked into his stuff and then I went to our doctors were like, oh, you just want steroids. And like I said, the military, I think, is still about 10 years behind on this. But Dr. Gordon has some great videos where he talks about how hormone therapy was helping guys heal a lot faster. So coming out of that PTSD hole, and in fact, there's a great video on the special forces guy that he partnered with to start the organization, who was also a breacher, who was on 11 different medications from the VA, chronic anger, couldn't sleep, didn't want to work out, just alcoholism, all sorts of different stuff. Maybe I shouldn't say alcoholism, but I think he was drinking inappropriately. But when he started working with Dr. Gordon, he was able to get off of like almost all those medications within a month. I mean, that's huge. That's amazing, because you look at what the VA tells you is like, oh, you can't sleep, here, take this sleeping pill. Oh, you have anxiety, take this anxiety pill. Depression, antidepressant. But, they give you all this stuff that just suppresses the problem, which is your brain is not producing the right amount of hormones in your body, and that's why you feel the way you do. So, and I'm not trying to minimize like how people feel. I'm just saying there are other ways to heal. A lot of people have to go through counseling for years, before they realize, before that slowly heals back. But with that hormone therapy, he was showing that he could do it a lot faster. So I went to endocrinologist, and she walked me through a lot of that. She showed me that my testosterone levels were really low, my vitamin D levels were low, all sorts of different stuff. And it was really, really helpful. That helped me out a lot. I was able to start sleeping better. I was able to start working out again, which helped me feel better. I was more productive on my team, that kind of stuff. So,
man, that's awesome. You got me. I got some homework that I got to do on my end. And the foundation is called the Angel Warriors Foundation.
Yeah, I think that's right. I'm going to look real quick.
Okay. And Dr. Mark Gordon.
Yep. Angel Warrior Foundation. Yep. That's the one. Really cool. They got some good videos too. I really liked it. He does some good talks on YouTube as well.
Okay. Yeah. I'm going to check him out. Yeah. But tell us, what's been the toughest part of your journey?
Probably family, coming back to my family. Not that I couldn't come back to them, but being there for them. And, so I have 2 little daughters. One of the biggest things about being on the team is you're always go, and you're gone all the time, and you're doing these really cool things. But then you're not there for the family. So really trying, it may sound corny, but trying to be there for my daughters and be there for my wife. And saying no to whatever the team's got going on. It was tough for me to leave active duty. Honestly, I really didn't want to. I still love doing this stuff. And that's probably why I stayed in the Air National Guard. But that was the toughest, I think.
I got you. So, as people are walking their journey in their processing and dealing with their trauma and grief, they tend to hurt other people along the way. And so that old saying, hurt people. Talk to us about, not necessarily about the people that you hurt, but more about how can people make amends when they hurt someone?
That's a good question. I guess if somebody has hurt somebody, and they want to, you have to want to make amends, because you want them to feel better, or you feel bad about what you did. So I think that's probably the starting point, accepting that you did hurt somebody, or and that you want to make it better. I don't know. I think it has to start. I haven't really been in that situation. So I think it probably has to start with you. You have to want to feel better. You have to accept that you deserve to feel better. And so do they. I think a lot of what happens is, or what I've seen happen is, people feel guilty, and they don't know how to share that guilt, and they take it out on other people. And it's tough to say, like, you tell somebody, hey man, it's not your fault that it happened. That's a lot of times it's tough for a guy to accept that, because you do feel responsible at some levels, but you have to understand that you deserve to feel better, and so do the people around you. And if you continue, down that path, it's not going to get any better for anyone. and whoever it is you're grieving over, or whoever it is you feel responsible for and losing and everything, I doubt that they would want you to feel that way too. You deserve to live a good life. That's what life is for, right? Love and life and the pursuit of happiness and all that.
Yeah, you said it best. The person wouldn't want you to breathe and feel that way. You deserve to live a good life too.
Yeah.
That's good.
You deserve to be happy at the end of the day. Everybody does.
Indeed. Okay, well, in your I guess with that saying, right, because we understand what motivates us more times than not, it's our immediate family, our dependents, spouse, siblings.
Yeah.
Really help us, to kind of like, if I'm not going to do it for me, I'm going to do it for them. Or, I need to own my shit because now it's bleeding off from them and their life is now having to deal with mine. And that's the collateral damage.
Yeah.
Right. So, my first question is, does a person need to wait for their darkest hour to make a change?
Absolutely not. I don't think so. I mean, because what's your darkest hour? I think your darkest hour would be, it's over. But I think understanding that you can and you deserve much better is a great start. But why even let it get to that way? I understand why it happens, because people think there's nothing left to lose. Then all of a sudden it opens up and they learn more when they're open than they do. When you give up, all of a sudden, that's where you hear all those people that spontaneously heal, is because they give up. They stop fighting so much and their body just starts to heal on its own because they're not in anguish. So that's why I say I understand why people heal better once they get to that darkest hour. But I think if you can stop that long before that, understand that you deserve much better. The people around you deserve much better. It doesn't matter what you've done or for what you've seen. Because, there is a lot that you see over there. You see in doing jobs for the military, but you still deserve to be happy. That was in the past. So I don't think you need to wait to your darkest hour. I understand why people end up doing that, but absolutely, understand that there is better. There's much better. And people have come back from way worse stuff when you think about it. You look at, there's some amazing stories out there. Like the guy, I can't think of his name right now, but the guy, they made a movie about him where he gets shot down, taken by the Japanese, and he lived with the Japanese. He was a POW for so many years, made it back. And he ended up living a happy life, him and his wife, that's all. People can do it. And that's the thing. You got to understand, you're no different than him. Your mindset maybe, but you can change your mindset. It can get better and you deserve better. And you can do so much more once you open that aperture up, open that scope up and see the possibilities. But you have to accept that there are other possibilities, that it's not your fault, that there are other ways your life can go.
Yeah. No, let's talk about professional help. From a individual standpoint and from a leadership standpoint as well. Because I know being in the military, a lot of us deal with I don't want to be perceived as weak.
Yeah. I know we were always required to talk to the psych doc when we got back, but most guys kind of brush that under the rug. But there's organizations out there that are doing some, like NICO, they're doing some amazing things with mental health and physical health, just teaching guys how to respond to those stressors and how to come out on top. Unfortunately, I didn't get to go to it, but I heard amazing things about the NICO organization. But there's more and more of those opening up. So, I think being clear about where you want to go is number one, right? So what do you want out of life? Do you want to be unhappy for the rest of your life? Do you want to become something better? Or, do you want to live a happy life? Like, where do you want to go? Having clarity is first and foremost. And when you have clarity, and again, I'll say it, like, commit to what you want, you'll find a way. The how will become apparent by committing to where you want to be. And if where you want to be is just happy, and that's, maybe that's very general, but it's going to help you start seeking that help. I definitely understand, like, not seeking help. I mean, we were on the brink of divorce at one point, me and my wife, but, seeking that help, going to that endocrinologist helped me out. Got my testosterone levels were extremely low, and got me back up to normal, and I felt much better, and everything, I healed better, so, when you know yourself best, and if you are not functioning at your top level, like, maybe you need to see help, please go see help. Like, there are people that have done this before. There are people that have either done it before, and maybe help just means reading a book. Maybe help just means listening to a podcast, or maybe it does mean going to talk to some professional, counselor, mentor, whatever. I know in the business world, like where I work, right, or where I'm in my business, people are always talking about mentors. Mentors help you grow as a business. If they can help you grow as a business, I know they can help you grow as an individual, because somebody's done it before you. I mean, that's the whole point, right? Is learning how to do it faster, better than someone else, in business anyway. But why wouldn't you use a mentor for the same thing in your own life? How to get better faster, how to feel better faster. But I think it starts with clarity. Like, you got to know what do you want out of life? And if you want that tomorrow, if you want that in an hour, like, you're going to need some help to get there fast, Yeah. So I definitely don't downplay counseling. I don't downplay mentorship. I do think that, like I've said it before, I think a lot of the medical doctors on the military side are a little far behind, but it's a good start.
Indeed. I like that. And so with that being said, do you think it matters if your counselor or mentor either looks like you or have been through similar experiences you've been through, in order for you guys to have a connection to be able to help effectively? That's why I do think it does play a part. And I'm not going to go into, I don't know that race or gender has a piece to it, but I do think that, of the same background. And by that, I mean, maybe job skill, or at least in the military, like, how is somebody who's never been to combat going to tell me how I should process what I saw? You know what I mean? So I can see where people have problems with that. But being able to talk to somebody that will listen, there's probably a lot of value in that, just being able to talk to somebody. And, that just goes back to journaling. Journaling is the same thing. Like, you're getting everything that's going on inside out on paper, and all of a sudden now you can look at it. That's all you're doing with talking to a counselor. But I think there is a lot of benefit to, you may be more apt to open up to somebody that was there with you. And like, when we would do that on the team, it does accelerate the acceptance, accelerate the, the love of the brotherhood, and whoever passed or whatever happened. So that does help if they're from the same background, in my experience. But, being able to talk to your wife, talk to significant other, or a counselor,
I mean, that's just being able to get that stuff off your chest is probably is helpful, is absolutely helpful. And some people don't want any association, right? I mean, because they don't want anybody to know that they saw counseling, but it's still very valuable so long as you're getting that stuff out.
Yeah. What advice would you tell your younger self?
Enjoy the ride. You know, I mean, that's the great thing about life is like, there are so many ups and downs, but the ups and downs are there just to teach you, you know, what you do and don't like and how to do it better next time. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? You're going to die. You're going to die anyway. Is that morbid? I don't know. But like there's so much amazing things to do in life. Like you can't sit around and dwell on what you haven't been able to done or, you know, where you're going. I mean, and embrace the failures and embrace the losses. And now, you know yourself better, and now you can grow and be better in the process. I mean, that's what it is. It's all one process, right? It's like one evolution of, you know, it's the evolution of Ashton and the evolution of Greg, you know, from when you were a baby to now. Embrace it. It's awesome. It's amazing. You know, think about where you came from and what you're capable of now, what you weren't capable of, you know, 20 years ago. And what's the next 5 years going to bring? You know, it's yeah.
So, I mean, you kind of answered my next question, which was, do you see your growth?
Yeah. I mean, I love it. Would I go back in time? No. Maybe, I don't know. I love a lot of the stuff I've got to do. I loved a lot of people I met along the way. You can't go back in time. So that's why you have to, like you said, live in the moment, engage now. Like, this is it. I love this quote, man. Joe Rogan, everybody knows Joe Rogan. He's got a famous quote. It's, you know, be the hero of your own movie. You know, in your movie, in your favorite movie, what's your hero doing? Go do that. You know, is he making $1 million? Go do that. Is he married and having kids? Go do that. You know, like, figure out what makes you happy and go do that. Yeah.
I like that one.
Yeah, man. That's one of my favorites. And I think too many people let life pass them by because they get stuck in like worrying about all the details. Like, take one action a day towards your goal. You know, maybe you want to be in a movie. What's the next step? Like, take one step a day. You know, you'll never get to the top of your mountain by looking backwards or by not moving forward. You have to take it just one step a day. That's easy. You know, Yep. Take action, commit to where you want to go, take action. If it's commit to happiness. Now, what are you going to do for happiness? You know, everything that's in the past, that's the great thing about it, is we can only learn from it and move on. Like, why dwell on it? I mean, I don't know. I'm not trying to make light of people's issues. I've had plenty of friends that have died. I've had friends that can't walk. It is what it is. But happiness is there for everybody. Figure it out. What do you want to do? You know, you want to be miserable for the rest of your life? Like, be the hero of your own movie. I love it.
And enjoy the ride.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Well, look, I really, 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 really appreciate you coming in and dropping some jewels for us. It was definitely an experience, and like I said, you gave me some homework, some things to think about, research, so I'm going to get into it. I want to give you a chance to talk about some of the efforts and some of the things that you're doing on your end. How can people reach you in the whole night? I'm still active. Well, Air National Guard, so part-time. But my brother and I opened a real estate investing business. And, you know, if you ever want to reach out to me or my brother, he's a veteran as well. You can find us at www.valkyriegroup.com, and that's VALKERE. But we basically, we buy commercial multifamily properties and we get a bunch of people together, buy them and rent them out for cash flow and tax depreciation and stuff like that. So, that's all the business side, but I'd be happy to talk to anybody that, you know, is working through something, or they're maybe getting out of the military and they need some tips on where to go and what to do. I'll
we love working with vets. A lot of the people that we partnered with in the past have been veterans, and veterans hold obviously a dear place in my heart, but they're also, I find them more reliable. People that veterans tend to be more goal oriented, and they want to know where they're, what they're getting into, where they're going. And I think there's a lot of power in that. And, they've proven themselves, right? I think there's a lot of power in that. But I'd be more than happy to talk to people if they want to reach out to us. I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram as well. Just Ashton Laverick. And happy to talk to anybody, man. I've had a great time, and I appreciate you having me on here, Greg. I hope I answer your questions. I can only answer from my experience, and yeah.
Hey, it's been amazing talking with you, brother. I really appreciate you. So,
thanks for having me.
Any words of encouragement before we sign out?
Yeah, be the hero of your movie. What do you want out of life? Let's do it. Let's make it happen. I mean, that's one of the things we're focusing on is starting our own nonprofit in the future. So pretty soon. And it's to be able to take special operations veterans and their families on some type of decompression, after a deployment. So take them to Costa Rica and, take them fishing and surfing and yoga and, reconnect with their family and stuff. And so, I don't know. I think there's a lot of power in getting back with your family. So, yeah. I don't know. I'm rambling now.
Yeah. Well, hey, look, I appreciate you coming on. And everybody, this is Greg and Ashton with Guards Down, telling y'all to stay safe, stay focused, and stay engaged.
You've been listening to Guards Down with Greg Washington. PTSD and complicated grief are very real. About 8 out of every 100 people will have PTSD at some point in their lives. About 20 to 54% of people with complicated grief will simultaneously suffer from major depressive disorder. And that's why shows like this are hugely important. Raising awareness for PTSD and complicated grief. Thank you so much for listening. We hope you've gotten some useful and practical information from this show. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, hook up with us at guardsdown.com. weareiron.org, on Facebook at Guards Down, and find us on YouTube and Instagram.